I just said it depends on how you define successful, obviously.
So in means of success, do you think there's any ones that seem to validly follow to the conclusion? Obviously, considering your modal framework, whether that be the KTB4 system, or maybe whether you want to exclude the B or exclude the T, maybe you could just say K4. But whatever modal system you're operating under, do you think there's any that avoid the symmetry issue between that and the modal ontological argument for atheism?
Yeah, I haven't seen the argument that you're talking about, but I'm pretty confident that Rasmussen's argument avoids
I could like give
symmetry.
it give me a second.
Yeah, sure.
Let me like type it. Let's see. Necessarily, if God, then necessarily God. Okay. Possibly not God. Therefore, not God. Okay.
Oh my god.
Do you think there's any like symmetry issue between these ones and the initial?
Well, for starters, Rasmussen isn't formulated in this way, so I'm kind of unclear on the symmetry. And second of all,
this is going to be the proslogion formulation from the Anselm's original proslogion, and his proslogion
nice,
but there have been formulations taken from this.
Nice, but Anselm's
whether that be
only
Platinga's formulation,
is he just going to continue to talk? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, it's because I wasn't done. You can talk now that I am.
No, I wasn't done speaking. You said, do you have any problems with the formulation? I was going to give you the issues and you spoke over me to like avoid the issues I was going to give you.
I completely disagree with that. You can lay out the issues now if you'd like.
Talking. Okay, look, I'm not going to lie, bro. I'm going to
hold on.
I'm not here to be spoken over.
You don't have to run.
Yeah.
I'm saying you can give it.
I was told that was moderation.
He's trying to moderate
by the way, hold on. Yeah, I'm trying to moderate. See, you don't have to worry. Like, in this server, it's unbiased, so it doesn't matter like if me and you don't are like not cool or anything. I'm gonna make sure the debate is moderated. Okay, so Archi C was talking first, so let's see finish his point and then afterwards give the response. Okay.
Yeah, look, the first thing is like I'm not entirely interested in the history of the formulation that you're giving. I don't care if Anselm was the one that started it. It's pretty common knowledge. What I'm saying is I'm unclear on the symmetry because Rasmussen's argument, which is the one I mentioned initially, is not formulated in this way. And B, there's an issue with all sorts of arguments that take this formulation because premise 2, which is possibly not God or possibly God, are very difficult to justify, right? Because you're going to need an independent epistemology modality such that you can navigate that modal realm that you're making the claim within. Okay, so those are my two issues with that argument you just sent.
So I don't. Maybe you didn't hear the question, which is why I try to interrupt you just so you didn't blunder so terribly. But maybe I'll repeat it for you. So there's going to be a formulation of the modal ontological argument. One that I actually tried to mention wasn't initially coined by Anselm, but I said Anselm was the originator of the one and the formulation that I may be referring to. I'm not really sure how you missed that, but we're going to grant that you're just an idiot and that you just don't really know what you're talking about. So listen, this is really something of how it goes, okay? So there's gonna be an argument right here. Okay, it's gonna go something like necessarily. Mind you, by the way, I'll specify again. You asked about the modality, just the T4 or KTB4, modality. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but yeah, necessarily.
There's an axiom.
If God, what was that? The axiom specifically in reference to them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You are aware of S5. Actually, first off, K is not an axiom. K is a system. So I'm not sure where you got that from.
Okay.
Do you believe K is an axiom?
Do you want to get to the argument that you're writing?
That was the question.
Engage on meta.
Well, you interrupted me to say those are just axioms. So was that also meta? Or?
No. I was saying those are
No, so you can answer the question. Do you believe K is an axiom?
No, I'm not going to let you derail. Continue.
Okay, so if you don't want to derail, then why even respond by saying they're axioms? And then when I ask you and inquire about that, you say it's a derail. That just seems very, very weaselly to me.
That wasn't a derail.
That wasn't a derail? You asking me whether they're just axioms simply or not?
Yeah, that wasn't a derail.
That wasn't a derail? I never claimed it was a derail. So I don't know what Cartesian demon you're referring to or responding to at the moment, but what I asked for is whether you believe K is an axiom or not.
Let me tell you something.
Is it going to be an answer to the question that you're telling me?
My view on K...
If that's going to be a no, then I was asking you of whether you think K is an axiom or not.
Why is he talking over me?
Because you aren't answering the question.
Yeah, I was just going to give an answer to the question, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so K is an axiom. right? So K is an axiom.
Interesting.
Maybe you could interpret K as a system.
What do you
also,
think K is?
right? Do you want me to get like the actual axiom? I mean, K.
No, I asked you, what do you believe K is within, like when we're trying to formulate modal logic? Just refer to that. That was like your cue to speak, by the way. Just letting you know.
Yeah, I got a phone call. Sorry, when you get a phone call.
No, it's okay. So listen, basically, right? When we talk about the KT before S5 modality, I was just asking you. I don't know why you're over talking me, but I was just asking you, like in regards and with respect to modal logic, do you believe K itself is an axiom to which we can derive some stuff from? I'm just curious about this.
Yeah, K is an axiom. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I don't know if I want to like go over this confusion yet, but I mean, because you probably just mean something different. But I guess we'll just go through this now. Now that we have the specified modal system that we're referring to, obviously, when we talk about I'm derailing when I'm going into the argument and the symmetry issue.
Yeah, you're supposed to do that 5 minutes.
I'm sorry. I thought the point that I offered was whether you thought it was a symmetry issue or not. Maybe not. Could you like refresh my mind?
Oh my word. Can you get to the
I don't know why you're doing that. I'm just asking you, could you refresh my mind? Because you interrupted me to say that this is a derail when I was asking you about the symmetry issue.
Points.
You interrupted me, but it's okay, it's okay. So basically, right, the idea is, okay, when we refer to it, and maybe I could reference the paper for you if you're just very, very uneducated on this, right? The typical argument that I'm referring to, right, is just that necessarily if God exists, then God necessarily exists. God possibly does not exist, therefore God does not exist, right? The formulation that would be kind of prior, right, to the original modal ontological argument would be something like this. And these formulations, by the way, as I was trying to mention, are not just coined by Anselm, but also coined by Malcolm, Platinga, right, Adams, and Kane, right? To which I can cite you all these things.
Malcolm, Platinga?
Malcolm, comma, Platinga, comma, Adams, comma, and Kane, if you didn't reference that.
Said Malcolm, Platinga,
but I was going to say, though, obviously, it's the initial formula. It's okay. You don't have to like report your confusions to me. But yeah, earlier, as I was saying, the original modal ontological argument would go something like this. Necessarily, if God exists, then God necessarily exists. God possibly exists, therefore God exists. Now, do you think that this argument faces any kind of symmetry issues when given these systems, right? And then when reduced furthermore to these systems, if we were to take out B, do you believe that it would face the same issue C?
Yeah, so look, I mean, if this is my space to respond without being interrupted, I've already given the response like 20 minutes ago. The formulation.
The argument you gave wasn't the one I was referring to.
Yeah, can I get some moderation here? Like,
wait, hold on. Let them just fully flesh out his response and then give a response, okay, Archi?
Yeah. I'll let him gibber. My apologies.
So there isn't one singular form of the modal ontological argument. There are many forms of the modal ontological argument. Now, perhaps it's the case of the modal ontological argument that you sent in the chat has symmetry with some of the theist representations of the modal ontological argument. The modal ontological argument that I'm interested in, the one that I said is successful when you asked me whether you think any are successful, was Rasmussen's. Rasmussen's modal ontological argument does not take the same form as the argument you sent in chat, and so there wouldn't be a symmetry there, obviously, which is what I said 20 minutes ago. And the second thing is I think that it's very difficult, independent of whether there's symmetry, to motivate the second premise of the argument that you sent in chat, and so I'm just not convinced by it. So those are my responses. I think I've answered all your questions.
Well, that's strange because for some reason, I thought I heard that you say that was a response, right? But it's just interesting because I also heard you say in your response that you weren't actually sure about what kind of modal ontological argument I was giving, or at least what notion of modal ontological argument that I was giving, even though I actually specified the form of modal ontological argument that I was giving. And even initially, I even cited multiple sources and multiple authors, right, who are also huge proponents of the formulation of the modal ontological argument that I'm giving, ones that are actually the most popular within scholarly research of it. So I'm not exactly sure what the confusion is, but maybe I'll specify once again for you so you don't actually have to duck this time, right? I'm just saying like P1, right, necessarily if God exists, then God necessarily exists. P2, God possibly exists. Conclusion, therefore God exists. If you're not interested in that argument, which is the most original and most common formulation of the modal ontological argument, then I'm afraid that you didn't actually answer the question, because that's what my question was in reference to. That's why I opened up with talking about Joe Schmidt's article, which I was going to get clarification on, but you didn't actually let me, right? So now that you are informed that that's the argument that I'm referring to, do you think that argument faces any symmetry issues? And might I preface before you respond,
yes.
If you do not refer to this argument, right, and if you specifically dodge around and say you're not interested into that, and you're actually talking about a separate argument, that simply means you're not appreciating or acknowledging what I'm saying, right? Because that just means that when I refer to this argument, the concepts that are captured and I'm referring to it may not be the concepts that are captured when you refer to it, but I'm the one asking you and inquiring about this, right? So typically, it would only be normal for you to appreciate the concepts that I'm referring to. So if you're not going to do that, and if you're not interested in actually engaging, you can simply dodge and leave, right? But if you actually are interested in answering the question, I do really want to hear whether you actually think there's a symmetry issue here. And if there's not, right, if you believe there's not, then maybe you can argue about that. Maybe you can go over some different formulations of modal logic that we can take that kind of seem to derive these weird asymmetries that actually lead to the modal ontological argument, the original one being actually invalid within S4 and previous models. You can respond now that I've referenced that.
Yeah, so I'm going to give like the most clear answer to the question. I've already answered this question twice before. If the symmetry is between your common formulations, quote unquote, for example, Anselm's formulation, any formulation that takes the form, if God exists, he exists necessarily, or something, and then you say that God exists in some possible world, and so he'd exist in all possible worlds. Obviously, there would be symmetry issues there. I don't dispute that. I don't use those sorts of arguments. I can grant you there are symmetry issues with those sorts of arguments. That's fine. I already gave you a reason for why I reject the argument you gave in chat, so I'm not going to repeat it again because you think I'm not tracking. If there's anything more interesting you have to say, then you can say it, but I don't have to speak for too long because I don't ramble.
Okay, so the answer was no. You don't think you face a symmetry issues. Wonderful. So that was actually the question the entire time, sir. So, well, no, previously beforehand, you didn't answer that. What you said was that you're not exactly sure of what form I'm referring to because you're not actually familiar with there being only a single form of the modal ontological argument you're referring. You're familiar with there being a myriad of it. And you were saying that actually amongst the ones that you're specifically referring to, this one particularly doesn't face a symmetry issue. But now that you have actually appreciated the one that I'm offering and you do admit that there may be a symmetry issue, that's completely fine. Do you actually think there's any successful argument for the existence of God? Or that establishes the existence of God?
Yes.
Do you care to lay that argument out?
I already have to you like multiple times. It's a fine-tuning argument.
Oh, the worst one. Okay, that's okay. Do you just care to lay it out again for us? Maybe you can refresh the audience who isn't that familiar on.
Okay, it's like most fine-tuning arguments just take the form of if life is more expected under theism than under non-theism.
Wait, what's Q1?
I'm giving it. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Okay, let me write this down.
Yeah, so if life is more expected under theism than non-theism, then the existence of life is strong evidence for theism, or evidence for theism, whatever.
The non-theism.
Premise two is that.
Then wait, hang on. Before we get to premise two, right now, what I have for premise one is if life is more expected under theism than non-theism, then what?
Then life is strong evidence for theism.
Then life is strong, interesting evidence for theism. Okay. And what's P2?
Yeah, and then P2 is life is more expected under theism than atheism.
Life is more expected under theism. Okay. And then consequent being? You want to restate the consequent and the conclusion? Okay. Yeah, so life is strong evidence for theism. Okay, so your argument goes like this in chat?
So I have to open a message. Yeah.
Just let me know.
Just to be clear, when I say strong evidence, I mean, you can remove the strong if you want. I'll just I'm making this argument on the fly. I'm giving you the form on the fly. So
well, I mean, I hope that you wouldn't remove the strong because if all you mean by evidence is just some data that raises the credence of it, even though I don't even take life to be evidence at all, that I would definitely do some kind of argument to be rendered for that. But yeah, maybe strong doesn't have to be used here if that's what you want, but it just may not be favorable to you because I could just say it's extremely weak evidence.
Omit strong. I have reasons to believe that the evidence that's given is strong. It's just not a constituent of the argument.
Like epistemic reasons or prudential reasons?
It's just given how unexpected it is under the atheism and how.
Sorry, I asked, are you referring to epistemic reasons or prudential reasons?
It would lean towards epistemic reasons. I'm not sure.
Gotcha. Okay, wonderful. Do you have an argument for P1?
That's analytic under my view. I think that's what evidence is.
Sorry, your argument is that it's analytic? Okay. It is analytic. What? This doesn't seem formally valid at all. Is that just P1?
Yes, the way that I see it, it's the way I define evidence is if there is something that is true, and
wait, why are you defining evidence? What I'm asking for is whether that was P1, because this is all I have so far. And you said that you would render an argument, and you said that it is analytic. So I was like, okay,
no,
like, I'm just not seeing the conclusion.
Yeah, so the justification for P1 being true is I just take it to be definitional.
Okay, so you're saying you're inferentially justifying this by it being analytical?
It's just definitional, yeah.
Okay, do you have a reason to believe it's definitional? Like a good reason?
Yeah, I've also noticed, let me be a bit more clear about P1, as this might not be as clear. This life is more expected under theism than non-theism, and life exists.
Listen, you can like revise your shitty argument. I was just asking, do you have like good reason to believe it's analytical?
I'm doing that now. Okay, yeah, I just revised it, check in chat. I forgot to add the conjunct.
That's okay. Do you have like a reason to believe it's analytical?
I think that's how most Bayesians understand evidence.
So was that like a yes or no?
Yeah, I'm going off the definition of most Bayesians. Yeah, that's my reason.
So was that a yes or a no?
Yeah, there's a reason.
Okay. So you do have good reason. And what would that good reason be? You said because a lot of Bayesian epistemologists agree with you?
I stated like 3 times. Yeah, within the system I'm using, that's the definition that's most commonly accepted.
Okay. And you have an argument to render for that? Or?
Yo, C, shut the fuck up, dirty.
Wait, sorry. I don't know why you're insulting C. Let me just mute this guy. Anyways. So yeah, what was that? Do you have like an argument to render for that?
Yeah, I'll just like give a Wikipedia article.
I'm sorry. You believe a Wikipedia article is going to be an argument?
No, I'm giving you evidence.
I'm sorry. This is going to be formally invalid? I asked for an argument, sir?
No, I'm not giving you.
Do you have an argument to render?
I'm giving you evidence for the view that.
I'm sorry. I believe evidence is just going to be data that raises the credence of this specific claim. I don't believe I asked for any particular data or datum that raises credences or probability of this claim being the case. No. I asked for an argument, right? Do you have an argument?
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, you want an argument? Wait, hold on. I'm unclear.
You're over talking Apollo right now.
Wait, I'm unclear on.
Wait, you're over talking Apollo right now. What were you saying?
And I just want to clarify something. Hold on there a second before you give a response. See, right? So, just to be clear, just asking for an argument. So it's going to be like in propositions. So like,
yeah,
qualifies an argument.
I'm familiar. I'm saying.
So do you understand? So hold on. Just one thing. No, I'm not gonna. I'm not. Just let me finish. I'm not taking anyone's side. I just want to clarify.
You're just being aggressive.
Is it the case? Is it the case that you want to give an argument with a set of propositions, or do you want to just post a source, which would be evidence insofar as that's a piece of information supporting the given proposition, even though the informational data itself is not proposition? The choice is yours.
The latter, like I'm kind of unclear on like what's even being stated, because look, all I said is that the support for me using the definition is that most Bayesians use it in this way. And then he said, do I have like an argument for that? Like in my head, I'm like, cool, I'll give a source. Like I give, this piece of evidence that supports the view.
What do you think I mean? Or what do you think most like formal logicians mean when they use argument?
I wasn't done speaking. I want to make it clear that every time you try to speak...
your point was that you were confused on what I meant by an argument, and I was trying to clarify.
Stop talking. Stop talking.
Archie, just one second, Archie. Just 1 second.
Look, maybe by argument you mean like this really strict,
like a series of propositions that we can justify and reason from to a conclusion.
Stop talking.
Yeah,
stop answering. Stop clarifying.
Where's the mute?
Stop
where's the moderation? Like,
yeah, Archie, hold on. We're gonna take turns. Okay, so when C's talking, no interruptions. When Archie's talking, no interruptions.
What the hell is going on? Look, what I was going to say was maybe by argument you mean like this really strict, like logically formulated sort of sequence of propositions or something. That's not how I'm supporting my view here. Like I could give an argument, right? But like this evidence should be satisfactory for you, right? It's evidence that shows that most Bayesians use the definition that I use. If you just search up like on anywhere, what is evidence in Bayesian epistemology, they will tell you what I've told you. And so like I'm just not clear what the dispute even is. If you dispute my definition of evidence,
do you think I dispute like your understanding of what evidence is?
I said if you dispute what I think.
Yeah. Well, you're extremely confused. So I never actually contended that this is how most Bayesian epistemologists use evidence. What I told you is that I'm not sure why this would be considered evidence. So I asked you if you have an argument to render for that. What you sent me and what you decided to give me is a restatement and a recapitulation of why you believe this is evidence. And to me, it just doesn't seem like you actually rendered an argument when I asked you if you had an argument. To which you reportedly said yes. To which we still haven't received one. Now, you seem to have a bit of confusion on what exactly an argument is, but an argument is just going to be a series of propositions, right? Some initial propositions that seemingly we can reason from and justify to a final proposition, which we consider the consequence, right? We consider, let's say, maybe the conclusion. I think that's a popular word for it. And I'm just not seeing this kind of argument being given in chat. Now, if you think this is evidence, right, that's okay. I just don't see a reason to actually believe it's evidence. So that's okay. You can like keep repeating yourself and like reporting your psychology and like, recapping the debate. But this isn't really getting us anywhere, and this isn't really interesting. So do you actually have an argument for that? That's just a yes or no, by the way.
Under the definition of argument that you're giving, which is like a sequence of propositions that generate a conclusion, probably not.
Got you. So you don't actually have a formal argument for this. Okay. And what reason should we believe that this is evidence?
Like I'm gonna be honest, like you kind of have me at a loss here. Most people.
Okay, I'll help you. So why is this evidence?
Bro, I can't. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie.
You said I had you at a loss, so I clarified.
No. I wasn't telling you.
You didn't say that?
I wasn't done telling you what I was at a loss by. Right?
Okay,
like,
you can clarify.
The idea is just this. Whether you accept my definition of evidence or not, quite frankly, to me is irrelevant. Whether you think it's a definition we should use, to me, quite frankly, is irrelevant. Whether you think it's unjustified, to me, quite frankly, is irrelevant. Because under my view, given what I know, this is how evidence is mostly used. Now I could go and like get like sources from like multiple like logicians or philosophers or whatever, even statisticians that confirm like this is what evidence means in the Bayesian formula or whatever.
Are you disagreeing on what evidence means?
I wasn't done. I was not done.
Well, I'm just saying we're not disagreeing on what evidence means. I don't know why you keep referencing that.
I was not done.
You were confused.
I was not done.
So the only issue I have is why this particular piece of data would be evidence.
I wasn't done. Like where the fuck?
That's okay. I don't know why you're moaning. I'm just saying like I don't disagree on the fact that you may define evidence in a way that's in accord with most Bayesian epistemologists. That's not.
I wasn't done speaking.
I don't know why you're speaking,
bro. Look,
do you just want to do like a talking stick? I was just clarifying.
I wasn't done.
Yeah,
I was just clarifying. I think he wants to do like a talking stick.
In French, you told me that this was going to be unbiased and that there was going to be moderation.
Me asking for clarification is biased?
Let me finish what I was saying.
I'm sorry, sir. I won't ask for clarification.
No, I don't want you.
What we're gonna do, Archie?
I'm sorry.
Hold on. See, Archie, let me talk.
I'm saying that he can have talking stick if he wants. You just didn't clarify that.
See, and Archie, let me just clarify one thing, okay? So the way in which this conversation is going to progress from now on is that you guys are going to do talking sticks because there's like an interruption type problem going on. So C is going to talk and I'm going to mute you in the time being. Then when you're talking, Archie, I'm going to mute C. Is that okay with both debaters, sir?
Yes,
sir.
Yes or no? Okay, perfect. Gotcha.
Look, so just to be clear, this dispute all began because he asked me what the justification for premise 1 was. And premise 1, just to be clear, is just a restatement of what evidence means in Bayesian epistemology, right? If there are two hypotheses, right, or hypotheses, sorry, and one hypothesis expects the data more than the other hypothesis, and the data is existing, it's true, the data is something that's real, then that data accounts as evidence over the other hypothesis. It would raise the posterior probability of one hypothesis more than it does the other because it's more expected, right? That's the whole view. Now, he's asking me, why is this analytic? What's the justification? And I sent the definition, I sent a Wikipedia article that defines evidence in the way that I do. And he was like, why is this evidence for the view? And I'm just telling him, look, I could go and grab you multiple statisticians that say, yeah, look, this is what evidence is. This is the definition of evidence, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to. I think that's a waste of time. If you disagree with the definition of evidence, that's fine. I'm saying under this definition of evidence, the argument goes through. Under the way that evidence has been defined in premise 1, because I think it's analytic, the argument goes through. And if that's true and you disagree, then that's fine. We can wrap up here. Somebody can get the recording. Like we can see like whether the public agrees how I define evidence given the Bayesian framework. I just think it's like a really, uninteresting line of conversation to go under, where you question what's the justification for me defining evidence in this way. And when I give you justification for you defining evidence in this way, you're telling me you're not disputing the definition of evidence. You're disputing whether this thing I've sent is evidence. But the thing that I've sent being evidence for, right, is the idea that this is what evidence means. So I'm just telling you, look, we can move on. Basically, that's like the long story short. We can just move on. I'm not interested in doing this nonsense. We have to grab so many sources and you defining like a very basic.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what that rant was about. Maybe I'll like make this in the most clear terms. So most Bayesian, not Beijing, but Bayesian epistemologists, all they understand evidence as, and actually this isn't even just exclusive to like Bayesian epistemology, but also just generally when we're talking about like evidence when we're referring to science as well, usually we're just going to refer to some piece of data that tends to raise the probability or the credences to believe in a claim. If you understand evidence to be anything else, to which in like your rant and monologue, it didn't seem like you did, then it seems we agree, right? In fact, it actually seems as though we don't actually disagree on what evidence is. In fact, it's almost like I clarified multiple times when you were trying to interrupt me in claiming that I was interrupting you because I just so didn't want to hear your argument, that actually I don't disagree on what evidence is. What I questioned was why exactly is this piece of data evidence? I'm not sure that this piece of data is anything that raises the credences. Now, to be clear, I questioned your premise one, which was like, it was just a conditional, you know, if X, then Y, something of. And I was asking, why exactly should I accept this? You said that this was analytical. I said, interesting. Is there good reason to believe that? You said, yes, there is good reason to believe that. I said, okay, what's the good reason? You said, because this is like just common, that is just analytically common amongst most epistemologists and most people who do study the literature. Now, when I furthermore asked for an argument for that, it seemed you got like stun-locked and you admitted to the fact that you didn't actually need a formalized argument. So I said, okay, do you just have like empirics on that? And what you did was you just gallied away, you skipped away, and you just very, very carefully and threadfully dodged away from the empirics and away from any kind of sense of evidence because of the fact that you don't actually have a formal argument. Because of the fact that you don't have a formal argument, you don't have empirics, you have nothing but yappery, and you have absolutely nothing but nonsense that you don't know about. So listen, I don't really care about the meta. I don't want recaps next time. What I just want is good reason for why this specific piece of data is evidence. Now, if you feel like you've already given that, you can just simply recapitulate it. Because I feel like if I asked anyone in this chat what exactly was the reason for it, they probably wouldn't understand, right? So it's not exactly just a me issue, right? It just seems to be that you haven't actually laid it out, right? But in being charitable to the fact that you could have possibly laid it out, but under your just British ramble, you just got lost under translation, you can just recapitulate the reason for why we should believe this particular piece of data is evidence. I don't want you to go over the definition of evidence, because we already agreed to that. I don't want you to say that just by definition, it just means it's true, because you're just question begging, because that's what we're inquiring about. I just want you to give a reason for this. And I don't want you to run and duck away from VC, right? I don't want you to do meta. I just want a good answer to this. You could go.
Okay, I have a question for the judge really quickly. So Apollo, I have a question quickly. The question is pretty simple.
This guy's running.
When he says that.
Wait, let him ask the
I don't know why
question.
it's-
Hold on, yo, what's up?
Yeah, so the question I have for someone's background, I think is Monlem. It's Monlem in the background. But
Monlem is in the
the question I
VC.
had to ask was this: when he says that particular piece of data, is he saying whether life is evidence for theism over atheism?
No.
Is that what he's asking? Okay, cool. If that's not what he's asking for,
I think he's
right,
talking about so Archie, just to clear up what's going on here, without straw manning what you're asking or what your argument actually is. This isn't the case you're asking for evidence for, it being the case that, oh, no, definitely. I thought you said you're not disagreeing or having a semantic dispute over the evidence or over what evidence actually is. So I guess you're just asking for the evidence for why this is the case that the first premise of the argument regarding life being something which is more expected under the theistic hypothesis being true, correct? Or no?
Sorry, I was subbing someone in chat. So what I'm asking for is why this specific Wikipedia article, which he sent in favor of evidence to this conditional being analytic, why this would be any evidence that seems to raise the credences of the claim that this premise is analytic.
We can conclude. That's the mission.
Sorry, I thought you actually had an answer.
No, we can conclude. Can I conclude?
No, I'm sorry. I thought you had an answer.
So I can conclude.
So that wasn't your cue to run, right?
Polo, can
Wait, hold on a second.
I want to conclude.
Talk to Apollo for a second. Maybe he could get you back on track. I don't know why you're running.
Just to be clear on a couple of things, right? So apparently it is the case that you were stating the first premise of the original argument about the theism hypothesis stuff, that's going to be analytically true, correct? See?
Yeah, I was saying it's analytic, yeah.
And was it the case that the attempt that you made to justify that proposition was the link, or was it a different argument?
No, like what the fuck? The attempt to justify it being analytic was not me sending a Wikipedia link. That's why I want to conclude. Look, I
Oh,
don't
so
want
the
to give this
Wikipedia
guy.
link was to justify the Bayesian epistemology stuff, correct?
So what was
No,
the
yeah,
data
because
for
wait,
it?
I want to conclude preferably. I don't want to give him a chance to respond to this because he's been very bad.
If you're saying that you don't want me to get a chance to actually understand your
I want
position
to
and you would
conclude
rather not clarify,
preferably.
you can
I'd
run.
like
But
to
I'm asking you
conclude.
now, in
I want
sake
to
of the
mute it.
fact, or
Follow,
like in light of the
follow.
fact that I may have just misheard you, what is the data that you're using to
So
support
there's
that?
a rule.
He's talking now.
Wait,
He's talking
just
over me
relax.
now.
You guys will get
He's
hasty.
talking over me now. He's
So
talking over me
look,
now.
just to clarify a couple of things, there's a rule in the server, okay? And so if it is the case that one person wants to conclude and the other person does not want to conclude, what we do is a coin flip, right? So coin flip is what seals the deal, you know. So
I'll take
heads or
heads.
tails.
Heads. I'm gonna win. I even do it for you.
This guy just say heads after me? Yo, this guy can't be a real
Okay,
human.
hold on. Let me see if I have a coin on me. If not, someone can just do a coin flip online or something. in the
I threw it. I
VC.
threw it. It says that we shouldn't conclude.
Oh wait, hold on. So can someone do an online
It's
coin flip and
tails.
stream it?
Everybody heard Archie say he said heads.
This
Archie,
guy's
right?
this guy's running
we
so
can-
so badly
Wait,
right now. What the fuck?
wait. Look.
Wait. So who can
Follow.
do the online coin flip stream
I
stuff?
just did
to make
it.
sure
Let's
that-
do it.
I just did it.
Yeah, he just did it. He just got heads. He just won
No,
on his
it's
own
tails.
screen.
I just
See,
changed it to head.
He just did it,
This
guys.
can be neither of the debaters is going to be the determiner for the coin flip.
What on earth? Yo, I'm being bro. Bro, this is
Yeah,
so
I'm just gonna make-
ridiculous.
Honestly, I just don't get why you're
ready.
running when I'm honestly asking for what data it is if it wasn't the wiki. But we can do coin flip, Apollo. What did the coin flip show?
Hold on. So to be clear, who can stream a coin flip online right now?
I
Hey,
can't.
bro. Holy shit.
Okay,
Let's
you know
go
what?
to coin flip.
Yeah, since Archie can stream and he's the only person streaming, do
Let's
the coin
see.
flip and then we'll do this.
But I
coin
just
flip.
All right, guys. Coin flip for whether C gets to run.
So
Yeah, what-
heads or tails?
what-
C or an
I'll
Archie?
pick heads. What do you want to pick, Mr. C? Do
I'll
you
be
prefer
tails.
that or would you rather be heads?
I'll be tails,
Gotcha.
bitch.
Oh, wait, how do I do this?
That's
That's
because you
Bro, oh,
don't get any tails.
I'm gonna leave, bro. He just flipped
It seems
again.
you got tails, bro. You got to run.
Hey,
You wanna
hey,
conclude?
you know, I'm gonna.
You got your glorious route out.
I need to be
You get to
muted.
He
not
want to
do
tails because he doesn't
Can
get
he be
no
muted?
fucking
Can
help.
he be muted? Can
I'm
he be
sorry.
muted? Can he be muted? Can he be muted? Okay, thank
Of course
you.
I
So,
can.
anyway, yeah, in conclusion, hold on, I need to turn up Tron. Oh man, he's not talking. Anyway, in conclusion to the argument, he's confused. He was confused the entire debate. And I'm not interested in having the conversation anymore. So basically, just to clarify everything prior to what happened, because like it seems like the whole audience is like a mental genjutsu from his rhetoric. Basically, what happened was is he asked me what the justification for premise one was, and all premise one states is if life is more expected under theism than atheism, or under theism than non-theism, and it's the case that life exists, then life acts as evidence for theism, okay, than atheism, right? In that specific domain. He was like, oh, what's the justification for that? I said, that's just how I define evidence, man. It's analytic, right? Which is to say, it's true by definition. The reason why this premise is true is by definition. And he said, why is it analytic, right? So why is it true that by definition? That's just how I define it. That's the definition I'm taking. Then he asked me, why do we have good reason to accept this definition? That was the question that was asked to me. That was the question that was posed to me. And I said, well, this is how most Bayesians use it, right? And he was like, no, you're not tracking. I asked, do you have good reason to use this definition? I was like, yeah, most Bayesians use it this way. Then I sent the Wikipedia article. So the Wikipedia article is for a completely different claim. The claim I was using for the Wikipedia article was, do we have good reason to accept the definition of evidence that I postulated, which was something that raises the percent probability of one thing over another within that specific thing, within that specific like evidence that we're updating on. Not why it's analytics and bigger. So the reason why it's analytics is because that's just the definition that I'm using in the debate.
Oh,
That's why it's
so
analytic.
those are separate claims?
Yeah, it's just separate fucking claims. He was confused the whole time. And
Oh.
so just to be clear, the justification from this one is just that that's how evidence is defined, which he didn't disagree with. He disagreed with whether it's the case that, you know, the Wikipedia article that I sent was evidence towards the claim. But the reason why I sent the Wikipedia article was just to show that I had good reason to use this definition, right? Because it's supported by most statisticians, most logicians, most philosophers, and I kept going back to that point and hammering it down. So it seems like he doesn't disagree with premise one after all. And even if he did disagree with premise one, I'm not entirely interested, because we could just post it on YouTube and most people would seem to converge on the definition that I gave, because it just is the most common definition. Whether you like it or not, if I give the evidence or not, I'm not really interested. I don't have the energy or time to bother with explaining basic shit to you. So that's my conclusion.
And it seems
there's a few things to unpack here. I mean, it's just quite obvious that at the moment, C's just really battling with this Cartesian demon. Maybe it's the case that it's making him believe in an external world that doesn't exist, where in this external world, for some reason, he actually thinks that he clarified and gave evidence for his position. Well, listen, maybe I'm gonna help you really walk you through this. So, in an attempt to give some kind of evidence for this analytic conclusion, what you told me was that this was the consensus, right? Now, I'm aware. First, I want to clarify. I'm aware, and I've already stated this within the debate, that it can be two separate claims that one of the consensus seems to serve as evidence. But you seem to furthermore use the wiki and use this analysis of it to grant and to raise the credences when I ask for the empirics of it, right? So it's either going to be the case, right, as I already mentioned before to you, which you kept over talking me on, right? I've already concluded and I've already clarified the case that either it's going to be the case that you didn't give empirics for it, which means you weren't successful in actually proving this, or the empirics, it seemed to be the wiki article, which I asked for why this would be evidence. Now, I'm not really sure what his argument really is. I'm not really sure why he's like baffling so much. He seemed to be confused on what exactly my contention was. He thought I was disagreeing on what exactly evidence means. I already told him that I can be fine with him just defining evidence in the sense to where it seems to be some kind of piece of data that raises credences to, a certain statement or proposition for it being the case. I've already clarified that's completely fine. I'm just not sure why this piece of data does. Now, in an attempt to valiantly run, right, when he clarified that, in fact, the wiki was not his piece of data, when I asked him for what was his piece of data, he refused to answer and recapitulate it. Now, this could be for one of several reasons. It could be the fact that he simply has autism. He didn't recognize that in that moment, if he simply clarified, that we wouldn't have just went on rails and it would have been linear. It could be, too, that he's completely neurotypical, and that, in fact, it wasn't actually attributable to autism, but it was the fact that he was a dodger, that he ran valiantly because he didn't want to clearly say with his voice when he was in the debate what his actual reason was. Now, or it could just be the third option, that he's just so retarded mentally that he actually just forgot about this and suddenly jumped his feet and remembered within the actual conclusion. But whatever it could be, I simply explained to him that I just don't have any good reason to actually believe in this P1. Now, off the jump of this, right, even if one were to grant P1, right, I'm not even sure how he established his conclusion, right? I already clarified to him beforehand in the past that I was simply just doing this and that I could be charitable and that I still want to see how it follows, right? But under the idea, I'm just not sure if he has any actual epistemic good reason to believe this. And unfortunately, he just failed to actually demonstrate this. Now, under the guise of what his argument is going to be, typically it would only be a successful argument if he was to show the conclusion of his argument actually follows from his premises, to which he did not.